Hey everyone, welcome in. Betsperts Golf here for our first look at the 2024 3M Open and a little Open Championship recap here, as always, with my guy Ron Kloss, PGA Splits 101. How's the weekend? How's the golf? And then thoughts on the Open, man. It was just a fantastic event to get to consume that type of golf in a very different way, and an interesting leaderboard for sure.
Yeah, it was kind of carnage those first couple days, and you just had so many guys just ejecting, and even a guy like Justin Thomas, it was just looking at his scores, just crazy looking, a 10-shot difference every single round. That's the beauty of links golf. And I hear a lot of people talking about this, and I couldn't agree more. Like, we need like a whole month of this. Let's just go out there, let's play the Irish Open, let's throw in, move the Dunhill links up. So I think just the challenge of these guys, and some of these guys who just hate playing in it, kind of force them to play in it more. But yeah, what can you say about Xander? Like, just almost methodical. Like, what a Sunday round. He just didn't make any mistakes. And it's just crazy where he was just a month or two ago, where before the PGA, everybody was so down on him, and now here he is. You legitimately have to say he's in the race with Scotty for Player of the Year when you win two majors. And I was thinking about this too. You remember when John Rahm, I think it was last year at the beginning of the year, maybe the year before, when he was just so dominant, and you just every tournament you're like, man, how do we not pick Rahm? And we were there with about last year, and then we were just there with Scheffler, and now it's like, okay, maybe he's not as dominant as we thought. And so it's just funny how golf just kind of ebbs and flows, and guys just kind of pick up momentum. And so, yeah, those are my takeaways. But it was just great watching Xander just dominate out there.
Yeah. So I think it's a really good point. And the Rahm comp makes a ton of sense too. I think in my head, and I put it out on Twitter, I'm like, choose your fighter. Like, what do you think is a more impressive year? Like, the majors, 6 wins, or 2 majors, top 10 in the other 2, like, really strong top level championship performance from Xander. It's not even that I don't think that Scotty separated, because I think Scotty separated. I just think that Xander has kind of done that as well. So we would have maybe like in terms of what we get on the PGA Tour all the time, Scotty, Xander, Rory-ish. Feel like that's kind of separated as good as, Rory is. And I don't want to have like, short-term reactionary, I'm thinking about my vacation type of reaction to the Rory stuff, because I think Rory still, he's right there. But what we're seeing from Xander and Scotty, just the consistency, because Scotty still played fairly well. He set such a high bar for himself. Some of the strokes gain stuff, especially in some of the teeth of the conditions that Troon offered, Scotty still, the ball striking was immaculate. Now, again, we had more woes on the greens than we had in a couple months for sure. Some gimmies, some cheapies. That was tough to watch for Scotty for sure, on some blow up holes and stuff like that. But yeah, Xander, part of it was just couldn't get over the hump, and winning golf tournaments is hard. And he just was continuing to put himself in the position. But at a certain points, like, you got to close, dude. Like, you got to do it at some point. And he closed a couple of big ones, and those things go away pretty quickly. People forget, and people that are definitely younger than us will not remember, Phil couldn't win. Phil was just, would pick off these weak events, and Phil could not win a major. Phil could not close. And now we don't think of that now that we have a multi-time major and, an all-time player who went out and, got himself a bunch. But like, there was a long time there where Phil just couldn't close. He just was dancing around all the time, and, would make big mistakes on a Sunday and be over aggressive and shoot himself in the foot when he should have been holding the trophy at the end. And narratives can change, and it's no other way to do it than on the course. And kudos to Xander. Like you said, he just kept putting himself in position. We had a little Russell Henley sweat. Russell Henley had like a Xander light round, no bogeys, just 2 birds though. Just couldn't close. Had a couple of just burned some sides and some edges there real early, and couldn't get himself over the hump there. But kudos to Xander. It felt pretty clear right around the turn where he seemed to be separating, even though, Tristan Lawrence was hanging around longer than we thought. Dan Brown all week just wouldn't go away, which is great. That's another thing that we get when we go over there too, is you just kind of have these guys that will pop up, whether they're DP World Tour guys or guys that are used to playing in the elements, that make for, I think, really really good drama. The Max drama with making the putt on Friday to get himself in the cut. That's great theater. That is such a strong case for against these small field no cut events that the tour is posting, like that, to see a top 20 player in the world, all sorts of excited to make a putt to get himself on the number was really cool to see. So great event overall. I love the carnage. I don't know how we approach it from a handicapping standpoint, because the wave wind advantage, there's just no way to know. Like, you'd be kind of a fool's errand to try to really pinpoint ahead of time to make a outright bet in particular. Maybe DFS, you could take advantage of it more in showdown and stuff like that. But it's just kind of a hold on to your pants and hope you come out on top if you made the right picks.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for betting. Like DFS, you can really play both sides to be safe. You can pick one side, but with betting, you're throwing all your cards in. So yeah, maybe next year. I didn't go as heavy this year anyways, but yeah, it's just tough, these links events when you throw weather in. So agree.
Yeah, I don't know the best way to approach it. Like, trying to think of some takeaways and think about how I would want to approach it next year. I don't know. I feel like if you just hopefully get lucky. I mean, I felt like I had a bunch of guys swimming, not on the top, but in the mix, after Thursday and then heading into Friday, and then just those guys. Finau, I thought was fine, and then Finau, shoots an 82 or whatever, and gets in the wrong weather side, and yeah, just kind of a tough way that kind of goes out. So, Twin Cities, TBC Twin Cities, we typically get Andy boots on the ground this week, but Andy's wife, unbeknownst to him, scheduled a family vacation, so we don't have any Andy boots on the ground this week. We won't have a DFS show either, just FYI. So the DFS content will be subscriber only in the Discord. Take advantage of that. We're lots of great deals. Head over to betspertsgolf.com. You can look on the top of the homepage. There's a couple different ways for you to partner with some of the or join with some of the partners that we have. If you want to get access to the rabbit hole, you want to get access to all of Ron's DFS stuff, all of our picks and plays, all the articles, tools, all that stuff, head over to betspertsgolf.com. Check that out. We're going to jump in here, take a look. Twin Cities, a birdie fest, but a birdie fest that's a little bit different, Ron, right? We have water. We have more water balls here than anywhere else. We do have wide fairways, but we do have just more opportunities for trouble, more opportunities for bogeys, for lots of different reasons. We kind of had, Lee Hodges crawled out to minus 24 last year, but that's not really where we've been in terms of how this championship's typically been won. We've been typically a little bit further down, maybe the high teens. But obviously, if you are painting fairways, keeping yourself out of trouble, you can get to the 20s like we did last year. But talk to us a little bit about Twin Cities.
Yeah, average score is 19 under. Obviously, Lee Hodges kind of blew that away a little bit last year and went on a run. Yeah, it's just, we're coming off these links courses and obviously going back to Parkland style, but this is more like a Florida course in the upper Midwest. You got 27 different bodies of water kind of spread throughout the property, 13 holes that have some type of water danger, 9 off the tee. So it's going to be a real challenge with accuracy off the tee with all this water near landing zones. And so, yeah, has one of the highest birdie rates on tour, but it also has one of the highest double bogey or worse rates. And so you have this kind of in the early years, the rough was 2.5, 3 inches. And then 2 years ago, they bumped the rough up to 4 inches. And so didn't really see it, with Lee Hodges last year, but the rough is, a potential another issue off the tee that you kind of want to stay away from. There's a lot of risk reward holes. So, the holes are kind of bland overall, but, pretty good challenging stretch down the back 9, that hopefully will provide some drama. But yeah, it's as we get into the rabbit hole here, obviously a lot of importance to finding the fairway and, ball striking. And it kind of turns into a putting contest as well when, you got guys who are, just striping it out there and, greens in regulation, very high, over 70%. So not really a birdie contest, but if you can avoid the water, you're kind of sitting pretty this week.
It is a little bit of a tricky one to handicap because when you look at previous winners, really that's what we're trying to do here for the most part with this and, the betting show. And we're trying to pick get to the winners. DFS a little bit of a different dance, but when you look at Matthew Wolf won here, Cam Champ has won here, Finau last year. So you do have a spot where you look at, oh wow, distance, right? Distance is definitely going to be prevalent and going to be really impactful. And you look at the other guys that are often at the top, and just look at last year's leaderboard, for example. Just a lot of guys that you do not associate with distance that keep themselves in play off the tee. If they get good ball striking wise, like Martin Laird, JT Poston, Kevin Streelman, those are like those guys tied for second last year, right? That's not in the same makeup as a Cam Champ and a Matthew Wolf, Aaron Badley, Dylan Wu. Like these are not Zach Blair's in the mix. These are short guys off the tee. They can keep themselves in play. Tyler Duncan, just again, a list of the non-bombers, right? The accuracy guys. So it is a spot where some sort of total driving, some sort of hybrid of that. Got to be able to putt on these bent grass greens. It's interesting to see maybe the guys that were just had 2 weeks, or at least, excuse me, the 1 week on these fescue native greens out in Scotland, coming back to something that's significantly more faster. Again, these are pros, not super hard for them to acclimate, but it is definitely, a swing from what they were putting on for the last couple of weeks over in Scotland. So interesting to see how that works out. So kind of a difficult thing to land on in terms of like the golfer archetype to handicap in terms of the winner, because I think you see a lot of different guys in the mix. Like I don't necessarily think of Lee Hodges as a bomber, right? Like it's just a guy that got super hot for the week. So a challenging week to kind of build the model and hone in on a type of golfer.
Yeah, and I think you're looking at kind of two classes of players here, because even if you look at last year, Keith Mitchell's been up here every year almost. Cam Davis, two other guys who are just, when I think of those, excuse me, when I think of those two guys, I think total driving off the tee. And so when you look at the strokes gained from last year, you see Lee Hodges, when you combine approach and putting, he gained 16 strokes. Poston, same thing, he gained 10 strokes. And so some of these guys who maybe they're not as long off the tee like a Lee Hodges, but they're just, when they get hot ball striking and putting, and you can kind of combine those two together. And that's how a guy like Dylan Wu only gained 2 strokes ball striking the entire week, but he gained 11 and a half putting. And so these greens, that's another thing. These greens are so easy. And so, you have the potential for someone to just rack up, birdies just by, making putts, even longer putts than average. So I think those are kind of the two angles to look at as far as looking for, scores to build around this week.
Well, let's build a model. Let's play around with some stuff. Let's see what we get here at the very top of the 3M. You can see this is loaded into the rabbit hole. This is our customizable PGA Tour database that allows you to take any of the data that the tour has and change it based on the time frame, based on conditions, based off of how you think the course is going to play. Super intuitive, very easy to use. If you're seeing this for the first time, follow along. I think you'll find it to be very, very helpful to, maybe dispel any feelings about building a model. It's really not as scary and intimidating as it that might sound, and pretty easy to do here. So let's take a look at guys that are, we'll start with this is defaulting to the last 6 months, guys who are playing the best in this field. Strokes gained total over that time. I can see, Finau, the class, when you look at this field too. If you look at the odds board, obviously Tony is a defending champ. Can be a little bit rich. Let's look here real quickly at the odds, courtesy of our friends at the lines. We'll just buzz through. You can see the field. Finau, Burns, Thigala, Horschel. There's some guys that were, Thigala didn't play weekend golf. Finau didn't play weekend golf, but obviously Burns and Billy played some weekend golf there in Scotland. Akshay here in the field as well. Luke Clanton again, our amateur, continues to be in the mix. Tom Hoagie, Keith Mitchell, as you mentioned, has been here a lot, has a lot of success. The captain, Keegan Bradley, JT Poston, Pendrith played last week. Some of these guys are coming off of the Barracuda as well. Cam Davis, EVR, McNeely and Hadwin, Dunlap, a nice little showing last week. So kind of an interesting top of the board. Rosie not getting any respect. Rosie buried down here at 50 after an emotional week. So interesting to see, kind of that's the top of your board here as we jump into this too, to get a sense of what to expect. So I'll just take a look here. We'll add this. You would add something to the model. You just click on the plus button. You can make a little description note. This is just last 6 months, just to get a baseline of who's been playing some really good golf. Then how do you want to start to chop this up a little bit? What do you want to look at?
So from just a general perspective here. When we go on the filter by conditions menu, so it is, I probably will still side with, the easy because it is obviously in that easy range. But what I'll do is I'll for sure go very easy, and then throw average in there, just to kind of get out the difficult conditions. And so now, obviously, for some guys who have trouble with water, and it's interesting, and we can look at that too coming up here. I think there are some takeaways from that. It may not be easy for them, but I just think overall, start with that. We do have kind of a longer course, and so I'll probably, as a side note, probably not combine them together, but I'll take, average long and very long courses as well, and just kind of filter out the short ones.
All right, and these conditions, so this is looking at the last 12 months when scoring conditions are basically anything other than difficult. We have easy, very easy, and average scoring conditions. You can see who pops there. Again, that filters out, which hopefully is intuitive to you, filters out players that have performed really well when the conditions are harder. You don't want, some of these guys don't play on a lot of the spots that are considered harder because they don't qualify for those events. But this filters some of that out too in terms of the guys that do, who can play well when the ask is that we need to get into the upper teens to maybe low 20s. So this is what that does here. See easy scoring. Looking at the last year. All right, let's so you want to let's look at water damage. Let's take a look at that because it is a unique thing, and it began because we have more so than any other place more water balls here. Right, we have a ton of birdies, but as you mentioned, I think in your preview on the site as well, we need to look at bogey avoidance here. You got to stay out of trouble, and often that's not just tee to green, 3 putts. That's because the greens and reg here are through the roof. It means your bogey avoidance came because you found the drink.
Yeah, and this is the beauty of the rabbit hole. So no other site has this, and so for us, the high filter here, I think it's any course that has 10 or more holes with direct water danger in play. And so we're talking about other courses like PJ National that are just have all these, a lot of Florida courses on this list, TPC concession. So yeah, and what I'll do with this is, because obviously you have all this trouble off the tee end, there's 4 approaches that are either over water or water is just, lake pond is right there. I will look at, I think, ball striking on water danger, high water danger courses. And then I'll also, like you said, I'll do bogey avoidance on the same filter, high water danger, because that's the main trouble this week.
Yep. Yeah, so we're going to fight this sample size beast with these guys a little bit because this is the last 12 months getting a mix.
This is where I would go 3 years just to get a little bigger because water is something that these guys, some guys grew up in playing in it all the time. Other guys, maybe from the Midwest or other parts have not played on many of these courses with all this water, and so I'll kind of sample it out a little bit.
Yeah, you can see 3 years. Bigger sample, some guys an acceptable sample for sure. Fienalberger List, Keith Mitchell, Doug Gim, Austin Eckroat, Tom Hoagie, Vincent Norman, Emiliano Grillo, Carson Young round out your top 10. Some other names that are near the top of the odds board are kind of floating around right behind that too. Lee Hodges is your defending champ. Has fared well there as well. And I think it's important to look at what we're actually trying to do. So as Ron mentioned here, we're looking at ball striking here. This would not be a spot to look at strokes gained total because we're capturing around the green and putting, which is not really what we're trying to capture by looking at water damage or water danger being high, right? We want to look at either, in this instance, off the tee. I still think ball striking is the best way to do it because if you can have, approach shots with water that are, short of the green, around the green, or things like that. That's really what we're trying to tell with this filter. So I think that's a great way to do it. We go ball striking, water danger.
Just looking at a guy like Tom Hoagie, you see there. Well, you see, he's 86th in off the tee, but he's always, whether there's water or not, he's always kind of ranks really low off the tee. That's his main struggle area, and so that's that's where kind of knowing the players. That I'm still going to play him because I think obviously probably the best iron player in this field, and it's not the water that bothers him. He just can get wild sometimes off the tee, so that's just kind of knowing the players.
Good call. Let's look at bogey avoidance in the same setting as we touched on. Last 3 years, set a minimum round feature to get some of this smaller stuff out. We can see who in this data set is finding the drink. So again, Finau, Ben Griffin, Zach Blair, again, mentioned him on the leaderboard last year. Bryce Garnett, again, another fairway finder who's had some success here. Grayson Sigg, Carson Young, Kevin Yu, Aaron Badley, Justin Hadley, Tyler Duncan, Daniel Berger, and Andrew Novak. And again, like these are guys that were near the top of the board last year, and I think there's something to be said for that. Right, here's Dylan Wu again, as we touched on, and it was all putting, but that matters here quite a bit too, right? If you are finding yourself on the greens and regularly and nearly 80% clip, you got to be able to convert those two. So avoiding the bogeys, we'll take a look at this too. Bogey avoidance in water. All right. What else do we want to look at?
So I think you'd agree this is a big course where you don't want to be wild, you don't want to be spraying it, and so we'll go to our favorite here off the tee, distance from edge of the fairway. So this may be, you do have wider fairways here. They are 35 yards on average. But again, this is going back to you don't want your guys who are spraying it wildly off the tee, and so guys who have that pinpoint, who when they miss, they don't miss by much. I think that is huge this week.
Yep, and I think it continues to have some names that, again, were on or near the top of the leaderboard here last year when you kind of run through this list. And you can create some sort of hybrid total driving too, because I think distance does matter a little bit. But when you see, some of these guys that were near the top and they're, bright red and driving distance, that tells me that it maybe helps because it's always going to help, right? There's no scenario where it's really not helping. Right? You're going to get a more lofted wedge in from an approach standpoint, but it doesn't seem like a prerequisite in terms of having success here. Comparatively, it looks like we've seen some of these guys here, be able to navigate this place pretty well without the distance. Even though we're stretched out as a par 71 at 7,400 yards, it always helps, but it's not something that I think we have to jam in. So distance from the edge of the fairway, last 6 months. So I'm going to leave that there.
And if you wanted to go really down the rabbit hole, you could also take the water danger filter and look at distance from edge of the fairway just on guys who have played these courses before, where they're going to be tested, where you have all this water. So that's another angle if you wanted to, go down that hole as well.
Yep, good call for sure. And you're going to make sure you take the filter off too. You put a filter on and then start looking through everything. It's going to always be through that lens. Typically, it's hanging out for you right here. You can just hit reset all and it'll go back to the defaults. But good way to look at it too, and think about how you want to go ahead and navigate that. The reason, if you're new and watching this for the first time, that we like distance from the edge of the fairway versus total driving driving accuracy, because driving accuracy is just a basic yes, no. It doesn't really tell us specifically like when you miss, how much you miss by. I think there are some opportunities to see some gaps here. It doesn't hurt to look at accuracy, but again, it is, I think, a flawed stat compared to distance from the edge of the fairway, which I think tells us a little bit more about actually controlling the ball consistently off the tee versus just the yes, no of distance from the edge of the fairway. So it tells you here, like, Akshay can miss, right? He sprays it when he misses, and we want to avoid the sprays off the tee here because that is going to find not just woods or pine straw or whatever. We're going to find a penalty stroke because we're going to be dropping a hanging three. So that is not where we want to be here. So think about that a little bit too when you're going through and building this stuff. From an approach standpoint, again, we need to put ourselves in play off the tee, but what's the best way to look at approach here, you think?
Yeah, this is a week where, obviously, you could, well, we already have the ball striking with water danger, so we don't need to double that. What I'll do is weeks like this where, if you're in the fairway, approach is kind of on the easier side. I'll kind of look at very recent approach, like last 12 rounds, just to kind of get a snapshot of the guys who are coming in real hot. And then, after that, we can go to the proximity ranges as well. I think, we have 48% of approaches last year came from 175 plus. So I think, those two buckets, 175 to 200 and 200 plus, are worth taking a look at.
Okay. I like the hybrid. I like short-term approach. And then I like a little bit, I would go maybe, 12, 24, 36, 50 or something like that. Like it's okay. And then just slice up how you weight it. Because you're going to capture a little bit of that as double counting, but you also, I think approach, which is the most bankable stat in terms of the stats that matter week in and week out. If you're going to be double counting anywhere, it's probably the one to do it. And you'd be doing that by adding the short-term rounds, but you can chop up again the weights in terms of understanding how you want to, give credence to certain form in certain types. Cause I think that matters quite a bit too. And again, like to Ron's point, if you keep yourself in play, you're going to be in the mix here. Greens and rag almost 74% last year. It's almost 10% higher than a tour average event too. And as you mentioned too, driving accuracy is higher than tour average as well, because these are a little bit wider greens. It just is when you go bad is a penalty here, right? At least one penalty stroke if you're finding the water. So we want to avoid that as much as we can and try to find ways to capture that data is kind of the goal here. So this is last 12. And then we'll go, I'll back out. I'll just do last 24 just to see that as well. You can see who's there just to see a little bit longer. We'll go, let's go longer in this just because we're going to do it quicker for the show. In my model that I have not built yet, I will probably do something similar where I back out a little bit and chop it up into smaller sections. All right. Let's look at the approach ranges as you mentioned. And I don't love the approach buckets also because part of it is like figuring out how it is for different players. I think we'll find that here a little bit too, but also this place is a little bit easier to do it because I think it's easier to look at stuff from the fairway because most of these guys are going to be in the fairway. And that matters a little bit too, where you have, lower driving accuracy. It's harder to understand. Okay. I have to mix fairway and rough and proximity buckets for a Zach Blair and a Tony Finau. They're not playing from the same area or playing from the fairway and rough as equals as well. So those things are a little bit harder. But what buckets did you want to look at here?
Yeah. So, and just for everyone out there listening, we do have overall approach proximity coming. So I know people like to see fairway and rough combined. So we're adding that. And so, a lot of other things on the horizon as well. But 48% of approaches last year were from 175 plus. So just kind of looking at these mid to longer irons, it's not as much of a wedge course as some others that we've seen recently. So I'll just typically add these and I'll typically do, I don't know what you do, but the last 12 months, if you want to even get a shorter sample since, it's a kind of an easier approach course, but I'll look at those two.
My guy Ben James is in the field. That's fun. All right. Not a lot of the rest of this is good in the 6-round sample, but I like this field has the young kids in here too. We got Horsey Sauce, we got Thor in here, we got Ben James, we got some of the youngins, which we like to see. So some of the distance guys in here too. Will Gordon, Johnny Vegas, Kevin Yu, Doherty can bomb at EVR. So this is a nice little mix of guys. We'll add this in here. 175, 200. Did you say you wanted to add another one or 200 plus?
The 200 plus. Yeah, I'll do both those. Focus on those this week.
All right, we'll add those in here too. There's Thor at the top of that one. Finau still up there too. All right.
Oh,
around
wow.
the green.
I didn't even know Thor was in this one. Okay, so we got some good young talent.
Yeah. we got some of the good. Yeah, we got the good guys. Here's Horsey Sauce down here. He likes the long stuff too. So okay, mix and match. Around the green, like, geez, you're in trouble. Like in terms of it actually mattering to make a difference. If you're having to scramble a bunch this week, Ron, you're probably in trouble, right?
Yeah, it is. It is a little tougher when you look at the data from, from tight lies, from the rough. You have that thick rough, so it is a little tougher than the average to a course. But yeah, like with greens and regs so high, you're probably already behind the 8 ball if you're focusing on this. So I'm not gonna. I'll still weigh it in there in mine personally, just very slightly. But I don't think we need to put it in here. So for scoring, I think for me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the filter and I'm going to go to the easy average scoring because I don't want to get birdie or better on tough courses. I'd rather get, kind of knock those off the list here. And then another thing I'll do with putting is after you add this, we have a filter for how easy is it or difficult to gain strokes putting. And so this is one of the easiest courses to gain strokes putting on tour. So I will go to that and add that for, those types of easier putting courses just to see kind of if anyone different pops.
Yeah. Birdie or better, or should we do it from the fairway? Oh, the kids are popping, Ron. The kids are at the top. This is
Yep. Excuse me. And they've kind of played some of the easier courses. I don't know if they've really been, Shipley played the, couple majors here and there, but I'll probably just go overall.
okay.
I stick with that kind of, and but yeah, I think this is a week where, we could see another Dylan Wu get really hot on the greens, and so definitely would add putting after this too.
All right. Easy scoring, birdie or better. Reset that. Putting ranges. What do you want to do here?
Just putting in general, I'll go to, and then the filter is near the bottom. Gaining putting there. Yeah. So I'll go easy, very easy. I'll kind of check both of those.
Let's back this out a little bit.
And these are bent greens. So if you wanted to, go that route as well. So kind of a couple different ways you could add putting this week. And you could even do the spike through our floor ceiling filter, kind of see, obviously it's kind of another one of those where the greens are easier, scoring can kind of be hot, a little easier scoring. Spike putting is another angle to look at too. Yeah,
this if you're not familiar, this I'll reset this just to show people, but you can go into this floor ceiling view, and I absolutely love this. Again, people always talk, especially in DFS, about spike putting weeks. And you can do this for any of the strokes gain metrics. You can see how frequently someone gains in any of the strokes gain categories, and not just gains, but gains all the way up to 5 strokes. So you can filter this out. So you can put any of the conditions on it. You can see how frequently someone is getting it done in that, and just super important. So see how often someone gains strokes putting, but like, what does it look like comparatively to the field? How often do they gain, say, 3 or more strokes putting, right? Like really difference making weeks that could help you, win a GVP, or, get a cheapy guy, a 6K punt that's down here that can run hot with a putter. This is a great resource to do it. So, all right, I think we got enough here. Let's hit create mixed condition model, see what we get here, see what it spits out. And actually, we ended up having quite a few things. Let's see here. These are different. That's the longer approach range, distance from the edge of the fairway. Okay, this is why it's helpful to have the description, because when you add a bunch of things, you can get lost and see what it is. You can obviously click on this little icon here, and this will tell you exactly what it is and what all the filters were, the time frame, all those things. If you change course specific or you're looking at corollary courses, all of this breaks it down here if you click on the icon here. So, I don't know how to mix it up here. Let's see. We'll go baseline. Who's been playing well? Who's really good in these? Easy. Let me know if anything that you think needs to be.
The ball striking water danger, I put that at 15. Make that a little higher.
Okay.
Yeah, bogey avoidance, I put that at about 8. Distance, edge of the fairway, I would make this one a little bit higher, because off the tee, that's kind of capturing our main off the tee here.
These approach buckets. What did I do with this one? It's all approach 6 months. All right. Yes. There you go. You put more approach buckets, but you can just, same thing. We got these fairway ones too. We want to capture that. Let's do it. You can mess around with this. Again, they'll tell you at the bottom what your actual number is, so you don't have to do the math. But again, there's some double counting in here, but again, it's mostly approach, and that's an okay place to be. Or it's, in the ball striking, water damage type stuff. And I think that's really where we want to be. So again, for the sake of the show, we're rushing through this, but you could take more time, obviously, if need be. So let's go easy scoring, birdie, be a little bit more priority. So we got a little bit to play with here. We can add some more. Let's bake this out a little bit, and let's see who's played better on easy scoring, and then just the last few months. Let's see if this gets us there. Oh, get a little bit extra. Math. Hey, all right. We'll save this as an expert model, so you can go onto the site. This is really cool. You didn't see this before. You can go in here to view expert rankings, drop this little box down, and you can get the official model that Ron builds, that Andy Lack, Inside Golf Podcast. You can see this is his TPC Twin Cities model. Matt Vicenzi of Tapping In Podcast, that's here as well. Our guy Andy Molitor will have one as well, along with myself. So if you want to see the models that we built, all the actual stats, filters, and things that we put into ours, you have access to it. And go ahead and do it and let it help you build yours. And hopefully that helps as well. It's a really cool filter and feature for you to check out. I got to give it a name. This is our first look, Twin Cities. Let's see what we get here. Probably Fina, and it probably should be Fino as the favorites, as a defending champ 2 years ago, in just the class of the field. Yeah, Fino at the top. Doug Gim, again, as I will always state, is required by law. You cannot build a model in the rabbit hole and not have Doug Gim in the top 10. It just is a default setting. You can't turn it off. But look, I mean, everything here is just ball striking is safe and solid. You get into the proximity ranges here, or the scoring stuff. That's not great for Doug Gim, but very, very solid. Hoagie, same thing. You know, I guess you can call Doug Gim a poor man's Tom Hoagie. Keith Mitchell in the mix again. Carson Young, I'm not surprised to see when we went through some of those filters, Carson Young was showing up nicely. The putting stuff's not great. Doesn't thrive in those proximity ranges, but the rest of it is pretty solid. Akshay, Sahith, Chan Kim, Austin Eckroat, Ben Griffin round out your top 10, which is interesting. And Ben Griffin coming over. I think he played the Scottish as well. So another guy that's been playing a lot of golf. Most of that looks pretty good here too. But you can see a lot of these guys outside of Finau, like there are some blemishes, right? Some warts a little bit on pretty much all these guys, right? There's a little bit of concern. No one's really running away from an overall modeling standpoint. Keith Mitchell looks good. You know, distance from the edge of the fairway is not great sometimes for Keith. But some of the rest of the guys near the top, you see Lucas Glover here, Horschel, EVR. You mentioned Dylan Wu. That makes sense. Berger, this would feel like a solid Berger course if you could make a putt. Or if this is Daniel Berger that we are accustomed to. Spawn, Hadwin, Grayson Sig, Novak round out your top 20. So any quick takeaways here, Ron?
Yeah, I love Akshay this week. I think this is a great course for him. I think his putting is low in our model. And again, I think it might be, we kind of took a little deeper dig into easier courses. And so he might be a guy you want to maybe back out a little bit on, because I know his putting has just improved so much recently. And then you see a guy like Austin Eckroat, just a great ball striker, guy who's, really controls his ball off the tee, playing out down there in Oklahoma. Ben Griffin's been trending for a while now. I think these names all, Kevin Yu, ball striker. So you're kind of seeing it right here, guys who are just off the tee on approach, very dependable. And then, once you get to that point, man, you're just kind of looking for that spike putting. And so a lot of interesting names, Keith Mitchell, can he finally, turn the corner? What are we going to get from Tony after he kind of, rough couple rounds there at the Open? So just an interesting week. So excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah, right now we don't have DraftKings scoring, so just ignore the salary section updates, because you see I have a mix of Barracuda salaries and Open Championship scoring, so or salary. So that'll mix itself out. If you want to, you can click on any of the names in the rabbit hole and take you to their player page. So you want to see specifically what's going on with the player, you can do that as well. You can search for any players here. You can mess around with the view. So basically, any of the stats that you can find in the rabbit hole, you're going to be able to find here too. You can get rolling form, which I think is super helpful to take a look at. You can see here how they play in certain conditions. You can see we have bent grass greens for Tony here. That bodes well for him as well. How they play on long courses when the field is strong versus very weak, very easy versus very difficult. All these things I think are great to see. And we'll have, obviously, this will be updated later today with the Open Championship data too. You can want to look at any specific events here too. You can see obviously how a players perform. So you can do that by clicking on any of the names in the rabbit hole, pretty straightforward and easy for you to navigate. So before you take off, hit subscribe to the Betsperts Golf YouTube channel. We appreciate that. We'll be back tomorrow with the betting show. And again, typically Wednesdays is the DFS show. We have Ron and Byron traveling this week. But again, you'll have all the standard content on the site as well. All the stuff that Ron's doing, all the extra charting. Again, a lot of great stuff that just lives in Discord. You know, Ron puts out a lot of goodies and freebies on Twitter, but the real good stuff still lives, especially in tournaments, in the Discord. So go over to betspertsgolf.com, check it out, take advantage, jump in, check us out for a month. We're going to get a bunch of stuff. We'll cover the Olympics next week. We'll get the playoffs coming up, the Wyndham, some good stuff coming. So I appreciate you hanging out with us this morning. Thumbs up on the video before you take off too. For Ron, I'm Ryan. We'll see you all soon. Thanks, everyone.